I want to thank you all for joining us. This is the AAHPO Town Hall. We do focus on important events of the day, and we all stand united in the most important event confronting our nation in many, many years, and that's the problem in Artsakh. And we will have a terrific program. We do stand united in our defense of Artsakh. I can speak on behalf of healthcare professionals throughout the world. Pretty much every organization in the diaspora has, medical organization has signed on in support of the letter from the Minister of Health denouncing Azerbaijan aggression in Armenia. We have a terrific lineup today, and I want to thank each and every one of these speakers. They do so much to help Armenia. They're tireless in their efforts, and many of the individuals we see here have spoken to our group before. The Honorable Ambassador Nersessian, Anthony Kasparian, Mr. Aram Hamparian, Greg Bazoyan of the Armenia Fund, Vikin Sepelian of the Armenian Medical International Committee, Razmik Arzumanian of the Armenian Wounded Heroes Fund, and we just met Vigen Sarkisian. Thank you so much for joining us. Mr. Vigen Sarkisian is going to be giving us an overview of the geopolitical situation in Armenia. Thank you so much, Vigen, for joining us.
Thank you for the invitation, and I would like to say that clearly this type of town halls and discussions among professional cycles in Armenian diaspora, they have a significant meaning, and they have a big potential for development of ties between the motherland and diaspora. And these days obviously are extremely troublesome and dramatic, because events developing in Armenia are very intense, and in reality I think we are witnessing the highest ever tension at the line of contact between Nagorno-Karabakh and Azerbaijan, and now also Armenia and Azerbaijan, since probably the most dramatic days of the first war in Artsakh in the beginning of the 90s. Our independence came with a war. It came with a test of survival, and it made us as a nation in some ways stronger, because we very early learned that if we are to build our statehood, and if we are to build our dream in our sacred land, it has to come with the power to defend it. And I think that when we look back in the history of modern Armenia, we can proudly say that armed forces of the Republic of Armenia, self-defense forces of Artsakh, Nagorno-Karabakh, have been really a major achievement of our entire nation, of Armenians in Armenia and in diaspora. And I think that difficult as these days are, dramatic as the developments are, and terrible losses we witness, and when I say terrible losses, I mean every single life obviously is a terrible loss. And unfortunately there is no war without losses, there is no fighting without death and destruction, and we all know this. We need to learn to live with that. Our problems are not going to go away. I used to say it when I was Minister of Defense. We live in a very troubled region. And even if overnight somehow our most desired outcome for Nagorno-Karabakh conflict is achieved, it's not the end of our story. We still have a very difficult neighborhood where there are a lot of challenges within our neighbors themselves. I mean, look at the three former huge empires we are surrounded by: Ottoman Empire, Persian Empire, Russian Empire, each of them with multitude of internal problems, the Kurdish problem in Turkey, Iranian difficulties inside Iran, and this huge population, Azerbaijani population in the northern Iran, and south of Russia, what they call North Caucasus, and what is immediately neighboring the current zone of hostility, with Dagestan sitting there, Chechnya sitting there. These are all like the most dangerous places in the region around us. So the reason I'm saying all this is that it's clear that our security system is going to be built on a necessity of sustaining a long-term capacity to hold an armed forces, which is much bigger than a 3 million big nation should be able to sustain. If you look at per capita rate, Armenian army is the third biggest army in the world after those of Israel and Singapore. And in Israel, you know, it's a compulsory military service for men and women. And in Singapore, the conditions for conscription are very strict. I mean, you literally have to be a handicapped person in the bed to escape military service. And Armenia is coming the third in this row. It puts a tremendous burden on public expenditure and major pressure on societal perception of the armed forces and the service in the army. So I think that it's extremely important that we come out of this type of situations with victory, but more importantly, with understanding that it's not our choice. And it's not something that can be easily escaped. It's more likely that confrontations in this region will persist, and we need to be strong and prepared for facing those in a time. Major differences in this particular situation, which kind of differentiates this from April 2016 and from all the events that happened before this in the past, is that there was a clear period of preparation for this by statements, by political positioning, by putting ultimatums, and basically preparing the political and diplomatic perception in the world of what's to follow. And dictator sitting in Baku clearly did all the steps to advance this military operation by warning that Armenia is not constructive, that Karabakh talks are stalled, that things are not moving, and therefore Azerbaijan has all the rights to protect itself and to advance its agenda by military means. A bigger difference, and this is in my view the most dangerous difference, it's a direct involvement of Turkey. Turkey has always dreamed of being a part of this conflict, always, since 92, 93. If many of you remember, in 92, when the Karabakh war was like in a very active stage, Turkey moved its armed forces to the border of Armenia, especially the tank brigades, etc. And at that time, it was a statement of then chairman of the Collective Security Treaty Organization, which is like a security organization in the former Soviet space, who was a Russian general, who said that if Turkey intervenes, it would be a third world war, because it would be basically Turkey, NATO member, attacking Armenia, CSTO member. At that time, it was not an organization, it was Collective Security Treaty. Then it grew into an organization. And basically it prevented intervention by Turkey at that stage. Ever since, Turkey has dreamed of being part of this, and they have offered their mediating efforts, they have been offering their services to the parties, etc. But they have always been part of a problem, not part of a solution. They have been always part of a problem because Turkey, especially under Erdogan regime, is very clearly declaring, without hiding it, that they have this neo-Ottoman ambition. And it's really very symptomatic, because just imagine any of the former empires of Europe or Asia in the 21st century announcing that they have these neo-imperial ambitions, Austro-Hungarian neo-imperial ambition, or Japanese imperial ambition, or Russian ambition, which is very often labeled as imperial ambition by outside watchers. But in case of Turkey, Turkey itself, actually, if you remember, it was a doctrine offered by Professor Davutoğlu, who was a Minister of Foreign Affairs at some point, and then Prime Minister, who was saying that we are a continuation of Ottoman Empire, and we have this ambition, we have this vital interest in our space of former Ottoman influence. And they were declaring, if you remember, policy of zero problems with neighbors. But this zero problems with neighbors became zero relations with neighbors because they wanted zero problems always at the account of neighbors. So they became a problem in Middle East, they became a problem in Syria, they recently became a problem in Greece again, and in Balkans, and now in South Caucasus. This is really very dramatic. And I think that one of the most negative impacts of this particular conflict, regardless of how it develops, is that Turkey is trying to legitimize its intervention in Karabakh problem, be it war or be it peace. And I'm very worried because these days I've seen a couple of pieces written by some very respected experts, including a former chief allied commander of NATO, for example, Admiral Stavridis, who yesterday wrote in Bloomberg saying, well, maybe Turkey shall be brought into a mediation format to help find a solution. And I immediately wrote to him saying, Admiral, Turkey is part of a problem, it's never part of solution. We have to make sure that whatever happens in the battlefield, Turkey is kept out. A bigger issue is, of course, that Turkey has directly introduced international terrorists into a very dramatic region. And now it's a proven fact. I don't know if you have been following this, but CNN has given today a direct quote of this. The French president has given a direct quote of this. And I have put out here as a map. I'm sorry for the background. It doesn't work very well, probably, but all of you, of course, know this geography very well, but just take another look at it, where those terrorists are going. The red is Karabakh. Below you see Iran, on top you see Russia and Georgia. And Russia, when we say Russia, it's Dagestan, immediately at the border with Azerbaijan, with lots of problems itself, including local terrorist groups, etc., which are kept under control by Russian security forces for the last decade or so. And now imagine you have a few thousand external terrorists sitting in this area, literally within 100 miles from the Russian border, within 100 miles of Iranian border. And clearly, this cannot be unnoticed, and this cannot be easily tolerated by those players, because for them, it's a vital aspect of their security. And you have heard the statements by Russian Minister of Foreign Affairs, you have heard the statements by Iranian ministry. Iran has moved forces to the borderline. Russia is very concerned, and these developments can lead to very dramatic global regional development. So I think that one of the key aspects now here in Washington, in United States, should be putting all the possible pressure, and it's not much that right now can be done, because it's not that US has the same type of influence over Turkey it used to have decades ago, but still, I mean, everything that can be done within NATO as a NATO ally or as a friendly government, etc., is to keep Turkey out, because introduction of international terrorism to this region can really bring a long-term and very, very serious consequences. I can speak about this for very long. I don't want to take all of your time, so I tried to just give a macro level analysis. I've written and published an op-ed yesterday, which is available at my LinkedIn page, and I'll actually put a link here in our chat, in this chat box here, which speaks in more details about neo-Ottomanism and about how this is related to the Armenian genocide and that memory, and why we shall be very concerned by what's happening right now. Thank you for having me, and very interesting to be part of your discussion today. Thanks.
Again, thank you so much for your insights and your service to our homeland. We are now honored to have the ambassador to the United States from Armenia, Ambassador Barujan Nersessian, with us and his team. He's going to speak for the next 25 minutes or so regarding the issues related in Armenia. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you, Larry, very much, and good evening to everybody, and thank you very much for joining us this late hour. I didn't know you allocated 25 minutes to me, but I'll be happy to talk, and I'm joined also by Defense Attaché Colonel Mukherchan and some members of my team. Basically, what we're confronting is you know already the entire story going on, but I'll definitely share some perspective with you. And I just heard the end of the presentation of our former Defense Minister, Mr. Sargsyan, with a brilliant analysis. And to say that, what we are facing now is a large-scale war, not only against Azerbaijan's aggression towards the Nagorno-Karabakh, but also we're fighting at this stage Turkey, we're fighting Islamist jihadist mercenaries from Syria, and since September 27th, Armenia and Nagorno-Karabakh are facing imminent threat as a result of, well, you all know the background of this story, but of course, in our argumentation, when people, for instance, the journalists are asking here in Washington, how, Ambassador, you can prove that it's not Armenia, because Azeris are claiming it's Armenia who started it first, how you can prove it's Armenia and is not Azerbaijan. It's clear that this was well-prepared, clandestine, operation on the part of Azerbaijan and Turkey. First of all, after the July clashes at the Tavush North Armenia border, Azerbaijan has been preparing this operation together with Turkey very carefully. They have been exercising large-scale, drills from the part of Nakhichevan and Azerbaijan proper, and Turkey, in preparation of this war, deployed military, large-scale military equipment in Turkey, in Azerbaijan. F-16 jets, 6 of them, according to our information, were deployed already in preparation of this. Number one. Number two, Azerbaijani president, in preparation of this war, denounced the activities of OSCE Minsk group co-chairs and declared that they are doing meaningless or useless job. In preparation of war, all you need to undermine the institution, the very institution of the international mediators. So the Azerbaijani president on 2 occasions at the UN General Assembly at an earlier speech completely, denounced their activities. Number 3, on September 24th, Azerbaijan declared a large-scale mobilization of conscripts, which is now available in public domains. And more importantly, long before this attack, Azerbaijan has been denying the efforts of international mediators to establish a ceasefire mechanism, so-called investigative mechanism. So all of this, along with so many other arguments that Azerbaijan has been preparing this, with military rhetoric and so on and so forth, it's obvious. But this time, Azerbaijani president changed the tactics in a very simple-minded way. Also, in his speech at the UN General Assembly, he said that it's Armenia which is preparing a war. So he chose a very simple-minded, primitive tactics to say that, like Hitler in 1939, before invading Poland, staged this, fake attack against Germany. Similarly, Azerbaijani president announced that Armenia is preparing an attack. And just a couple of days before the attack, we saw that the US State Department issued alert to the citizens, American citizens, traveling to Nagorno-Karabakh and to the border regions of Armenia and Azerbaijan, which also witnesses that the US government obtained certain intelligence information about this situation. So with all of this, on September 27th, we saw this massive attack that was unprecedented since the war of 1994, attack along the entire line of contact from north to south with aim, the Aliyev dictatorship. Also, one of the analysis is that, frightened by the events in Belarus, Aliyev was calculating that these events may spread also. These democratic revolutionary movements may also spread to Azerbaijan. That was one of the side reasons that that is estimated in the expert community. So with altogether all of these purposes, two dictatorship in Baku and Ankara launched these massive attacks. Prior to this, we were warning privately through diplomatic channels about our information that Turkey is sending mercenaries to Azerbaijan. So no one can claim that this was not, because now when it became obvious to international media, yesterday I'm sure you saw the publications in world headlines in BBC, Jerusalem Post, Guardian, the Reuters, and also more importantly the French president, as Mr. Sargsyan just ago mentioned, and also the Russian Foreign Ministry issued the confirmation of these facts. So we have been, I just wanted you to let you know that we were been communicating some international partners and warning them that this is going on, that we are seeing that Turks are in a process of recruiting and dispatching hundreds and later thousands groups of Syrian, Islamist jihadists to Azerbaijan. So all of this is in the background. Now we are in the 5th day of this large-scale war. Thanks to our heroic, I should underline this word, heroic resistance of our military. Not only we have hold in general the line of defense, but we have caused, enormous casualties to Azerbaijani army, both in manpower, but also in the weaponry. It's estimated that more than around 1,500 casualties is on their side, and Azerbaijani government is not disclosing this information. Their internet is completely shut, completely. There is no any information available about their casualties of the military and weaponry. Nothing to that extent possible. So. The military is holding the defense, and not only holding the defense, but also advancing, wherever it's possible. Wherever, I mean, there hasn't been yet a major, attempt to advance, but the message to the international community basically is that, we have been appealing and expecting and waiting the international community, and of course, for me as an ambassador here in the United States, it's important the interference of the US government to immediately intervene to stop, first of all, Turkey's intervention, Turkey's assistance to Azerbaijan, and Turkey's military participation in this, and stop, sending the mercenaries to Azerbaijan. But unless this is done, we are on our own, and we have no other choice rather to counter this aggression and to enforce, if possible, the aggressor, Azerbaijani side, to accept the realities on the ground. We have no other choice. At this stage, we have seen statements which are more or less diplomatic. At some point, there are blurred diplomatic language of statements which call upon the both sides. They avoid to mention which side it is that is violating the ceasefire, which side is this. Because it's not a secret for international community who is doing this. But unfortunately, due to the overall, diplomatic approach, we don't see at this point, apart from several statements, some organizations such as Organization of American States or the American Council of Churches, or here we have about 30 members of Congress, thanks to our, Armenian American advocacy groups. I see Aram Hamparian and Brian Ardunia are here, thanks to their active work together with us, with more than 30 members of Congress, speaking about openly and by name who has been the violating side, who is the aggressor. But we don't see a major international effort to punish the aggressor. And I don't have illusions it's going to happen in the near future. Therefore, it requires Armenia, first of all, of course, it's all of we have seen today the statements by the three presidents, which has been long, expected, and we were working on that, by the three presidents of Russia, United States, and France, which was positive. We hope it will make some difference. But taking into account the reckless governments in Ankara and Baku, one should not have illusions that they are going to, listen to these appeals. French President Macron recently, on another occasion, on the Greek situation, said that President Erdogan doesn't understand civilized conversation. All he understands is the demonstration of force, and that's very much true. So in this case, the international community's civilized diplomatic appeals are not going to make a big difference. So we shouldn't have illusions that this is going to be over easily, or maybe even over soon, unless we really undertake a very serious countermeasures. We very much hope to this will be over through diplomatic work, diplomatic activities by the co-chairs of the OSCE Minsk group first, through exclusively peaceful means. But at this stage, throughout this fifth day, we haven't seen, as I said, a more robust, more tangible actions, first of all, demanding Turkey and Azerbaijan to stop this ongoing violence. So in the light of this, of course, we have to be very, very, very connected and united as Armenia, Artsakh, and our diaspora in the light of confronting this imminent aggression towards us, and trying to organize the humanitarian assistance. And I'm sure there are a lot of people here now present at this conversation who are doing a lot of things. I see Razmik Arzumanyan of Wounded Heroes organization is present here, and many others of you. We really appreciate all of this going on. But we have to understand that this is the perhaps most severe challenge since our independence we are confronting, of vital national security importance, which requires total mobilization of our national forces in Armenia and in diaspora, and directing the assistance towards Armenia and Nagorno-Karabakh in a coordinated manner, not in chaotic manner, because people sometimes, want to become very emotional. They want to send, some wants to send food, someone else wants to send, some other supplies. But at this stage, it's very important to coordinate. Like the other day, I requested our compatriots, the leading Armenian American community organizations in East Coast and West Coast, to do most of the financial assistance through Armenia Fund, because Armenia Fund now is at the forefront of these activities, is coordinating and with the appropriate structures in Artsakh and in Armenian government about the immediate necessities, the needs, and immediately shipping them to, doing the purchases and shipping them. So they are doing this in a coordinated manner. But there are many organizations that are doing fantastic job, and we want all of this to be coordinated.
And that is the political situation. We're very blessed to have two tireless Armenians who dedicate their whole lives to the cause on a legislative level. Mr. Brian Arduni, as well as Mr. Aram Hamparian. Both have spoken before, and we're very grateful for their presence tonight. We're going to start with the Armenian Assembly and Brian Arduni. Thank you so much again for joining us.
Everything that everyone's doing is making a difference, and I think it's also important to be strategic about our help, and how we can help the best. And these types of Zoom calls help really focus everyone, and so I think that's important. I know my colleague Autumn Amparian, and thanks for all the work that the ANCA does as well. Together we are making a difference. I'm sure he'll touch on a lot of things, so I don't want to have us like overlapping and talking. So I mean, there's the State Department letters, et cetera, et cetera. Let me focus on where we are on the Hill. Congress is going to go out of session at the end of this week, and be on the campaign. So this is our opportunity right now, between now and tomorrow, and we've been working very hard with Congresswoman Spear on a House resolution condemning Azerbaijan and denouncing Turkey. That resolution was introduced officially earlier today along with Congressman Schiff and Pallone and Bilirakis. There's a total of 32 members on it. But the key is leadership putting it on the floor tomorrow. So that's what we're really focused on, trying to get this resolution condemning, because then it puts the House on the record. It's not just a statement by this member or that member, it's a full statement. So we really have been focused on that and trying to turn the tide on the narrative, this false equivalency that we've seen between, where the statements are that all sides need to refrain from the violence, where we know everyone on this call knows what happened and how it started. I mean, it's an ongoing pattern. It's frustrating as all get out. And together we are making a strong statement and strong stand, and we need to continue the ANC action alerts, the Assembly action alerts. I know everyone on this call has taken action, but anyone who hasn't taken action, I mean, just forward it around. The more that members of Congress are hearing from us, the better. So I will just leave it at that. There's so many other things I could talk about, but that's a big focus to try to get this resolution in the House through before they break for the elections.
Thank you, Brian. Does anyone have any questions for Brian? Okay, it's a pleasure again to have Aram Hamparian from ANCA. Thank you so much for joining us, and we'd love to hear your thoughts.
First, I want to thank Brian and his team. They're working overtime and doing a great job. It's certainly a team effort in Washington, around the country, all over the world. I would echo every point that Brian made, and certainly the legislation tomorrow is a very, very high priority for us. If I would step back for just a moment, in times like this, where Armenia is in such peril, we try to be very focused in our role as Americans of Armenian heritage. And, America, as Viken said, doesn't have the heavy influence that it once had in Turkey. It certainly has never been the main driver, let's say, of Azerbaijan's decision-making in the region. But nonetheless, we must do what we can to raise the cost of Azerbaijani aggression. And that's done with letters and legislation. It's done with public statements and kind of isolating Azerbaijan as a bad actor in Washington. So that's the first strategic goal, is to raise the cost of this aggression. And then second, what we aim to do is to take new ground. And I think that that in every crisis is an opportunity. I think that the crisis over Artsakh aid over the past year and leading up to an important vote in the House this summer, and also a lot of significant actions on the Senate side, that crisis, right, was an opportunity to build and strengthen our Artsakh constituency around the issue of demining, which is a very popular issue. And similarly, as terrible as what's happening, as terrible as what is happening, as terrible as the events are in the region, they at least at the legislative level, we're seeing very strong support. I think every member of Congress who's spoken on the issue has either been very sharply critical of Baku and Turkey. Some have been just neutral, saying both sides need to cut it out, but not a single voice has stepped forward to defend the Turkish Azeri position. That's cold comfort during a hot war when people are being killed, but it's the basis upon which we build a range of other initiatives, which I won't go into right now, but things such as the Pallone Amendment, the Menendez request for a GAO study of the applicability of 907 to Azerbaijani assistance, the investigative mechanisms like Royce Engel, like the gunfire locators along the line of contact. Even the Artsakh aid program can be impacted by how the perceptions of Azerbaijan are in light of this conflict. So number one, raise the cost, and Brian mentioned some of the very, very important things we're doing in that arena, but also how do we use this opportunity to take new ground so that, God forbid, there is another episode like this, will be in a stronger position. So those are some general thoughts.
I don't want to give odds, but what I want to say is the members of, Congresswoman Spear, Eshu, Pallone, all of our very good friends are weighing in with leadership to get this bill on the floor tomorrow. it's an uphill battle, even if it was a resolution commending, America's flag or something like that. There's just so little time left, and leadership's been in negotiations with the next COVID package, but we are pushing hard. So I'll turn it over to Aram to say a few words, or give, if he wants to be odds maker, go for it.
Brian makes a very good point, which is that there's regular order in the House and the Senate. There's regular order, the committee process, hearings, markups, approvals, floor schedule, things of that sort. It's a process that usually takes weeks and weeks. If you try to compress that into 24 hours, or even in this case, 12 hours, you face many more hurdles. And we're fast tracking legislation typically requires everyone to give it a green light. And that means at the committee level, Democrat, Republican, and the leadership level, Democrat, Republican. And these types of situations lend themselves to one powerful voice exercising a veto. And that's, if you want to run the traps, you have to not have a veto. And that's the hard work that Brian and we are engaged in right now.
And to be clear, the House Foreign Affairs Committee did sign off. So now it's leadership. And now we're just a race against the clock.
We also are fortunate to have Mr. Razmik Arzumanyan, who's a member of the Armenian Warrior Heroes Fund board. Some of you may not be aware of their activities. He'll give us a very brief summary of what the organization does, and then a needs assessment of what is actually happening on the line and what we can do to assist. Thank you, Razmik.
Prepared the Army as much as was possible, especially in Artsakh, upgraded their entire casualty preparedness. And you've been hearing me talk about this for a long time, which means that saving every possible life when a soldier is wounded. And I can share with you that there would be many, many more in the dozens, if not over 100 casualties, based on my own estimation, if we didn't have that capability put in place over the last 4 years. So unfortunately, we do have many deaths, much more than is acceptable. Even one is too much. We have many, many wounded. We don't want to get into the numbers here. And so we need to do more of what we're doing, because what we have done over the past 4 years is essentially prepare in peacetime conditions. In a full-scale war, there's a lot more usage of equipment. There's a lot more chaos. There's many more people that get deployed into the same positions. And so we are in a mode right now to rush many, many more first aid kits to the front lines in Artsakh in particular. And we're talking about thousands and thousands of kits, maybe up to 20,000 needed in a few days. Which is several $100,000. So it's a big project, and that's been our main lane. So there's been discussions around supplies and equipment, and we're going to leave that mostly to you guys and the Armenia Fund to figure out the medical supplies, and we focus on first aid, and then there's several organizations that have been very helpful. So what essentially first aid does, you guys know a bit more than I do, many of you are physicians, is stops the bleeding when somebody's injured, or enables you to patch up the chest if there's a seal and the lungs can't breathe, etc., so that we have, instead of a few minutes, we have several hours to transport the patient from very rugged, remote conditions to the hospital. And that's what saves lives. And so, thank you for all the assistance you've given and the promotion. And I can tell you that just this week, we've raised about $500,000. Tomorrow, Friday, we're airlifting 4,000 kits. Next week, we're going to ship another 4,000 or 5,000, if not more. And, we thank you for your assistance and especially the guys on the front lines.
Just so everyone knows, the Mobile Eye Hospital is a 18-wheeler truck. It's totally self-contained. It has generators, lights, water. It can pull into any village, any military field, battlefield, and fully function as a very sophisticated operating suite. So it is a tremendous asset. Thank you, Roger, for sharing that with us at this time of need. We are hearing a lot about the medical response, and the Armenian Medical International Committee is a consortium of all Armenian diaspora healthcare organizations throughout the world. Under the leadership of Dr. Viken Sepelian, we've been communicating weekly and working closely with the Minister of Health, helping secure needs. Throughout the COVID crisis, his organization that he leads has been putting out hours and hours of continuing medical education to boost the level of awareness about the COVID-19 virus and other medical issues, and has now been fighting hard to deliver medical supplies to Beirut, and here we are now to our homeland. Dr. Viken Sepelian, thank you so much for joining us and giving us an idea about the progress of our medical outreach to Armenia and Beirut.
Yeah, thank you, Larry, for the introduction, and thank you for organizing us today to really get an update and better organize on, on our individual efforts. As you stated, AMIC sprung into action as soon as there was news out of Armenia. We actually met with the leadership of Armenia Fund, and shortly after, the Ministry of Health, along with the Office of Diaspora Affairs, just to begin to acutely plan a course of action. And the asks were initially of some supplies. Within less than 24 hours, there was a request list that came out of the Ministry of Health, which we circulated globally amongst all the organizations, and the organizations circulated amongst their contacts within their regions. And it really has been unprecedented to see the outpouring of support. That is something that we are trying to do. However, in this acute phase, it's almost whatever is coming in is being accepted. And some of the items that are, that have been requested, there's no one-to-one sort of match of that. However, we're not turning anything down. At this point, all medical supplies that can be used towards wound care, whether they're dressings, surgical supplies, sutures, splints, straighteners, all these things have been received. There is a lot of surgical supplies, whether it be drapes, sterile dressings, betadine, tourniquets, masks, hydrogen peroxide, big quantities of these that have been received. There are several accurate inventories of the supplies that we have, and however, more than half of it is still sort of on handwritten lists and is being placed on an Excel sheet, which will take some time to itemize and share with the group. At this point, nothing is being turned down. There's a dozen or so organizations that have donated through AMIC's contacts, and there are private and other entities that have come out of the woodworks that are providing, their contacts, whether it be medical supply distributors or pharmacy distributors that are lending their hand on this.
On that note, I want to wish you all a very safe and healthy week. Practice your social distancing, wear the mask. It does make a huge difference. Don't touch your eyes, face, or mouth. And if you have questions, please email them to us at info@aapo.org. And it is just really great to see everybody here. Thank you so very much.